team's been struggling. Did you find yourself regretting the situation more and more when?
Can you rephrase that question in a better way for me, please?
In a better way?
Yes.
Well, did you?
Are you asking me if I was regretting what happened because my team struggled?
Well, when you're not out there, you can't help.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to be with my team. I couldn't. As a player who plays baseball, I couldn't play baseball. I would have liked to be out there with my team.
Did you regret it all, what you did after getting suspended?
That's the same question there. Again, what happened, happened. I'm ready to move on. I'm just happy to be out there and play baseball.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Marty Time TV. I am Marty Caswell. We are brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Guys, we have made it. It is the officially, no, I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. We are one game short of the exact halfway point of the season. The Padres are right now 44-36. This time a year ago, they are 40-40. So the big question is, are we as optimistic on the Padres right now as we were a year ago? I think I know the answer, but I'm not sure if everyone feels the same way that I do. That's why I'm delighted to go ahead and add to the show today. Kyle Glaser, you guys know him formerly of Baseball America, contributed with MLB.com, and of course the very popular Friar Territory. Kyle Glaser, how are you today?
Doing all right, Marty. Glad to be on with you.
Thanks for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
We spent, I'm sure, a lot of time, and I'm sure you have as well on your podcast. I know you have different guests with Heath Bell and Mike Cameron revisiting the Juan Soto trade. I had countless conversations with AJ Caswell in the press box throughout this series. Not only did he say on this show on Tuesday, the Padres made the right move, he doubled down on that yesterday. And we're going to bring this conversation back because there's been so much backlash to his optimism as to what happened. But listen, Kyle, that's not why I brought you here today. I know you cover that extensively as well. What is your take on this Padres team as they stand at 44-36? This might be the most unconvincing 44-36 in Padres history, which is remarkable when you consider some of the failures they've had in their existence.
There's no question that this team has certainly had some games, particularly over the last 6 weeks, that have been uninspiring, where the offense doesn't do anything for 6, 7, 8 innings, and then they're able to get a big hit. They win 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. And especially against teams that you feel like they should be beating by a larger margin than they have been. It can feel, again, kind of like, yeah, they won, but at the same time, wins are wins. As I mentioned in other places, this isn't college basketball where there's quad one wins. This isn't college football where strength of schedule matters. Wins are wins. And I think especially for the Padres, let's not forget, for most of this franchise's history, there were plenty of games they couldn't do anything and they lost. So finding ways to scratch and claw and grind out wins when things are not clicking, when the offense just can't seem to get anything going, or the pitching staff has an off day. The fact that they still have been able to find ways to win, they've been very opportunistic, taking advantage of opponents' mistakes. There is something to be said for that. So as much as, yes, this team is not a great team, we know that, but they're not a terrible team either. They're a goodish team, as I've mentioned. And
a goodish team.
That's
they're goodish. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good.
That's kind of what they are. So again, it's not sexy, it's not pretty, but wins are wins. And I think all things considered, if you say, hey, they're well above 500, they're right in the thick of the playoff race, that's where you want to be at the halfway mark of the season.
For the majority of this season, Kyle, the Padres, the 1 through 4 has been, it's been the same. It's been Tatis, Arise, Manny Machado, and Jackson Merrill. And early in Tatis' struggles, I remember asking Mike Schilt, have you considered dropping him down in the order? And he said yes. But then he said, we haven't done that because when he is leading off, he is a game changer. He's so disruptive, right? If he gets on, walk, hit by pitch, whatever else it is, an infield single, he could be on second base. He's one of few guys in this team who can score from first base on a single. That's how athletic Tatis is. Are you shocked that Mike Schilt dropped him to 4th? Fernando Tatis Jr. batting 4th in this lineup. What does that tell you?
I was surprised to see him drop to the cleanup spot. I think he should have been dropped to the 2-hole. All those things are very, very valid, where, again, Tatis is so explosive, whether it's a leadoff home run, as you mentioned, walk, infield single, hit by pitch. In some ways, it can be a double just because he's a threat to steal.
Right.
But realistically, given where this Padres offense is, they needed to create more opportunities for Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado to drive in runs, to come up to the plate with more guys on base. So I did think moving Arias into the leadoff spot, Tatis into the 2-hole would have been the right thing to do. I was surprised to see Tatis drop into the cleanup spot. But part of that is Manny Machado has been so good all season. They don't want to move him down in the order from 3 to 4, so they chose to move him up to the 2-hole. So
I would leave Manny exactly where he is. He has been your most consistent hitter of this entire season. You leave that guy where he is.
I agree. I think there's a lot of validity to say just leave him in the 3 spot. Some of that is the left-right balance of you'd like to be able to go left, right with Arias, then Tatis, then Merrill, then Machado, then Sheets. But look, at the end of the day, it's about putting the lineup on the field that is most likely to create more run scoring opportunities. And right now for the Padres, that is a situation where having Tatis and Machado come up to the plate more with guys on base, Tatis in particular, I do think is something they need to do and is a change they needed to make. Again, we've seen a lot of moving pieces, right? We saw Cronenworth go from 7th to 5th. We've seen Earl go to 2nd, then back to cleanup and 3rd. So they're still figuring out exactly what it's going to look like. They're shaking some things up, which is good. They needed to. So we'll see where it settles in. But I do think that having Arias in the leadoff spot and Tatis somewhere beneath that is the best offense for this team right now.
Do you think they're also sending a message to Tatis? I mean, he's healthy and this struggle's gone. I don't understand what's happening with him, and I don't know if it's mental. I'm not quite sure. I know he is dealing with plenty of off-field distractions. The latest being the situation and his lawsuit. So I don't know if that's affecting him mentally. But do you think they're sending him a message? This was surprising to me.
Yeah, it's not a message. I mean, just talking to some people around the team and looking at the situation, it's simply hey, let's just change it up. You've been struggling in this position for the better part of 6 weeks now. Let's change it up, get you a new situation. Players' approach has changed. What you're doing when you're leading off is very, very different than what you're doing when you're hitting second or cleanup. So I think just changing it up a little bit, giving an opportunity to change his approach. Again, we'll see if it works, but this isn't uncommon around baseball where, hey, guys are struggling. Let's just mix it up. I talked to Mike Cameron about that on our most recent show. And again, I think at the end of the day, it's not so much a message. It's just something to try and get him going. In terms of his struggles, every player is going to go through them. We've always seen with him, his kryptonite is secondary stuff, down and away off the plate, and sinkers below the zone. And when he is being disciplined and not swinging those pitches, he's really, really effective. That's what he did the first month of the season. And he started swinging and missing a lot of those pitches. That's when he went into the slump. We started seeing him come out of it a little bit. He was getting on base, walking, stealing bases. Then he got hit in the hand. And he does have 2 home runs since then, but hands and wrists are really, really, really tricky. Those can linger even if you're not on the IL. So I'm not surprised that, yes, there's those 2 home runs, but there's been some offers in there as well since he got hit on the hand. I think it's just a situation. Just got to give him a little bit of time, let him get acclimated to this new spot in the order. I'm not really worried about Fernando Tatis Jr. It's just going to be a matter of time.
Did you get a chance to read what Dennis Lin had to write in The Athletic, his conversation with AJ Preller, of course, revisiting the trade, the Juan Soto trade?
I got a chance to browse it. I didn't get a chance to read it in depth yet. But I mentioned this, the other day. I covered that trade top to bottom extensively when I was at Baseball America, the prospect side, the big league side. And it's really interesting 3 years later how it's played out and what a monumental trade it was at the time and how it's remained so today.
Absolutely. Well, this is the part that I found interesting. Okay. Dennis asked, would the Padres consider selling if they fall out of the wild card race next month? And this is what Preller had to say. We've had years where we've been aggressive. We've had years where we stood pat. We've had years where we've pivoted and dealt for prospects and minor league players. I think your team kind of tells you where we're at. I think we're always open-minded. And I think for right now, it's looking like we're hoping to add to the club we have, but we're always going to be open to what direction we need to go and what makes the most sense for the team for now and the future.
Yeah.
What makes most sense for the team? Are you surprised by the comments? And what is AJ Preller saying? Like, I don't know, man. There's some pushback on this team. How much do you think the Padres really believe in the product that we're seeing at the halfway point of the season?
Well, first and foremost, I think AJ Preller's comments are actually spot on. You have to be flexible. This season is going to change so much between now and the trade deadline that going and saying we're definitely going to be X is not the best thing to do for the team. If you look at the Padres and you say, okay, we get to the deadline and they're in the position they're in where they're right on the edge of wild card contention, it makes sense to maybe make some small adds. If over this next month, the offense continues to struggle and the pitching staff regresses and they're a team that's 500 or slightly below, then it would make sense to trade Dylan Cease, trade, Robert Suarez potentially, trade Luis Ariz, maybe trade Michael King, all the guys who are not guaranteed to come back next year. Again, King, we'll see if he's healthy. That's the biggest thing. He has to come back and show he's healthy. But but the guys who are not guaranteed to come back next year, whether they're free agents, whether they have options, simply because if you're the Padres, look, this farm system is very, very empty at the top. And if you don't have a competitive team this year and you hold on to everyone when you're not really a team that's in the thick of the playoff race, you risk losing these guys next offseason and having nothing to replace them with. And then the team's really going to be in trouble. Then we're looking at a 75-win team. So it really is going to come down to how this team performs this next month. If they hold steady, it makes sense to make some small additions. Not go crazy, but make some small adds. If they get red hot, then it's going to make sense to make some bigger adds, just because then you feel like, okay, we can really compete. If they start to struggle, then it's going to make sense to sell. And that's where this team is. They're in that. They're slightly above the murky middle. This is not a bona fide, yes, we're going to be a postseason team for sure. But again, they're not terrible either. That flexibility is important.
They're goodish. They're goodish.
That's kind of what they are.
Gosh, it's just so aggravating. We've been waiting for this Padres for the offense to break out. I mean, I'm just wondering if their first month of April was deceptive, how good this offense was. They look like they had the absolute best offense in baseball, and Tatis has been an absolute different player since then. They've had injuries. Jackson Merrill being injured is a big deal, right? Twice, the hamstring, then the concussion. So there's something there. Manny Machado has been so steady. Luis Ariz is starting to come back right now. So leave him at lead-up spot. As far as the value, I mean, Michael King is not going to pitch until after the All-Star break at the earliest, so I can't imagine he's going to be traded. So let's remove him from the equation. Who has the most value? If they become sellers, Dylan Cease has not been the ace they expected him to be this season. Is it Robert Suarez who has the most value on this team?
It's probably Dylan Cease. Teams are always looking for starting pitching, and even though he's had some rough outings for sure, the peripherals are really, really good. So teams, especially more analytically minded teams, are going to look at the strikeout to walk rate and say, hey, we believe he's been victimized by some bad luck. We still think this is a potential frontline pitcher, and we're going to get the most out of him. And to be clear, again, King with his injury, it's certainly shaky. But, if he comes back and makes 3 really good starts, we have seen teams pull the trigger on guys who are injured, but they look really, really good coming out of it, right up to the break. So, again, it's possible, but you're right. It's unlikely given the shoulder situation. But Dylan Cease is going to be the pitcher that likely brings back the most, just because starting pitching is always, always, always in demand. And there's enough underlying metrics that some analytically minded team is going to say, we think we can get him in and he'll pitch like an ace for us. Again, teams certainly value closers. We saw the Padres trade a haul for Tanner Scott last year. Suarez would certainly bring back a really, really nice package. But I do think at the end of the day, all things being equal, Cease would be their most appealing trade item, provided, again, he pitches well over this next month. If we see the Dylan Cease that was going 4 innings, throwing 100 pitches and giving up 10 hits and 6 runs, that's going to change. Again, so much of this is fungible and flexible right now just because of where this team is.
Kyle, how many teams are out there right now that are in the same position as the Padres? They're kind of goodish. Like you're kind of waiting for them you're not sure they could go for it. I mean, literally what they do, the deadline could be to find what happens like in the next 2 weeks.
There are a lot of teams. I mean, you look at that, the Seattle Mariners, people talk about them as this sure thing buyer. They have a worse record than the Padres do. And again, they're in a weaker division, but still, I mean,
possible MVP on that team.
I'm sorry?
They have a possible MVP on that team.
Yeah, they certainly do with Kyle Raleigh. I mean, they're 41-38. So, I mean, they fall into this bucket. You look at the Toronto Blue Jays, they fall into this bucket. The Cleveland Guardians, they're not a team that typically adds, but they fall into this bucket. There's so many teams here that are 2 games above 500, 3 games above 500. I mean, the Reds fall in here as well. The Cardinals are a surprising team. Can they keep it up? That's another team. The Padres have a better record than. So, not to mention the Giants. I mean, there's probably at least a half dozen team that fall into this bucket of they could be buyers, they could be sellers, and next 2 weeks, even the next 3 weeks are going to make a huge difference. I mean, you look at the Minnesota Twins at this time 3 weeks ago, they looked like they were going to be challenging for the Central lead. Now they're under 500 and being talked about as a seller. I mean, so many teams are on the fringe here. Trying to say anything is definitive today is kind of a fool's errand.
I would love to know what that conversation is like between AJ Preller and the business side, led by Eric Grupner, because On one side, I mean, you have a lot of holes to fill. You need a left fielder. You might need 1 or 2 starting pitchers. You need to shore up the belt. You've got to get a catcher. I'm sorry. The bottom of the lineup is so bad right now. I know Maldonado had an important home run, but still. But on the other side, the Padres are selling out like every single game, right? I don't know. How do you say, you know what? Sorry, guys, we're done for this season. Thanks for coming. But next year we'll be back. If you're on the business side, I don't know how you do that when every single night Padres fans are packing it in. It's a really interesting conversation to be had.
They're going to hold out to the last possible moment, because you're exactly right. You don't want to turn off this fan base that you have energized. That has become one of the most passionate fan bases in all of Major League Baseball, that sells out Petco Park every night. We don't want to see another version of, hey, we had a great run, but now we're trading everyone away. We've seen that movie with the Padres before.
I know.
And it's something that fans are very, very attuned to and very, very sensitive to. So you're right. That is very much a consideration. And again, that's why if you're the Padres, you're going to hold out to the last possible minute and make that call and hope that this offense can pick it up a little bit so that this decision becomes easier. Because look, no one in that front office wants to be 50 and 52 at the trade deadline.
Oh my gosh, no.
No one wants that. So it really is going to come down to the players and the team getting the job done. And again, to their credit, as much as this last week has not been inspiring,
right?
They've won 5 of 7. They've won 5 of 7.
They've won back. Excuse me, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
They've won back-to-back series, but I think that what made it more discouraging, I think, for the Padres fans and the Padres, is they had to eke out a 1-0 game. I understand Mackenzie Gore is very, very good, but these are teams you're supposed to beat up on, and you're expecting more from the top of your lineup, and that really hasn't been happening. That to me is a concerning thing. A couple years ago, after 2023, we talked all year about, just wait, it's going to come. They're too talented not to hit. They're going to figure it out. And then guess what? They never did until it was too late. So,
and that's where I think this is where the character of teams come in. That 2023 team, we saw them sleepwalk through so many series. And it's funny, I remember specifically, there was a stretch where they faced the Royals and the Nationals at home, and they lost both of those series. And that was when they got booed off the field.
Yes.
And that's where now you fast forward to 2025, where look, it's not pretty, but they're winning the series. You'd much rather have that than a 2023 team that's more talented on paper, but just lacks that fight, lacks that character, lacks that resilience. 2025 team, we've seen that throughout this season, that there have been so many games where the offense can't do anything. We've seen so many pitchers get hurt. I mean, let's not forget, this Padres pitching staff is top 10 in the major leagues right now in ERA, strikeouts, whip, and opponent's batting average. That's with Yu Darvish being out the whole year. That's with Joe Musgrove being out the whole year after having Tommy John surgery. That's with Dylan Cease pitching in the mid to high 4s ERAs throughout the year. And with Michael King on the IL. I mean, this pitching staff has every excuse to not have pitched well this year. But guys have stepped up in the bullpen. Nick Pavetta's been great. We've seen guys like Stephen Kolek and Ryan Bergert. So I want to give this team some credit for the resilience, and Mike Schilt's a big part of that. And look, at the end of the day, wins are wins. It's not pretty, but you'd rather be where they are now than where they were 2 years ago when they're under 500 and sleepwalking through games. You're like, what the hell is this team doing? Now it's like, okay, they're not great, but you look up and they won.
Yeah, that team didn't like each other. They had problems inside that clubhouse. We were questioning Josh Hader's usage going into free agency. Blake Snell wasn't right. But there's weird about the dynamics with some of the big superstars. So it is a different team. You've been so great with your time, Kyle. I asked Tatis yesterday in postgame, what stands out about this team at the halfway point? He said, we're together. So they've had their struggles. The injuries have been a big part of it. Now we'll see what's going to happen with Xander Bogaerts and his shoulder issue. I mean, it's always something with his team, and it's not going to get better, but you've got to hope that your stars are going to carry this team. They're not going to be defined by Martin Maldonado or Diaz or even Gavin Sheets or Tyler Wade. They need to be. It's determined by what Tatis does, Machado, Jackson Merrill, Luis Arias. If those guys can help carry this team through some of their injuries, that to me is a big deal. Still.
No question. And this is one of those things we knew about this team coming into this year, that the lineup and the position player group, especially organizationally, was just super, super, super top heavy. And it was going to depend on those guys. And that's why we saw that early in the season, the offense looked great. When everyone is healthy and everyone's rolling, this can be a good offense. But over the course of 162 games, injuries are going to happen. Slumps are going to happen. And it's exactly what we've seen, that when some of those key guys have gotten injured, again, Merrill's missed time, Arias has missed time,
Yeah.
Tatis has missed a little bit of time here and there. Like, those are going to happen. And slumps, every player goes through slumps. I don't care who you are. Shohei Ohtani goes through slumps. Aaron Judge goes through slumps. And we knew this, that the Padres did not have the position player depth to withstand those slumps and those injuries when they happen. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing now, that, hey, early in the year, everyone's healthy, everyone's rolling. This offense can look great. But again, as the year goes on and things happen, they don't have the position player depth, both the bottom of the lineup or on the bench or in AAA, to help them withstand it. And that's what they really, really need at the trade deadline. If they do choose to be buyers, they're not one bat away. They're two plus probably another bench bat.
Okay. The last thing before I let you go, and you've been so generous with your time, Kyle Glaser. Thank you so much. When's your next episode of Friar Territory dropping? What's the topic going to be?
Yeah, next episode is actually dropping tomorrow, Friday morning. It'll be me and Heath Bell. We're going to hand out Padres first half grades. Again, we know it's
great,
80, not 81, but we will have first half grades, and all-star rosters drop next week. So we're going to talk about who on the Padres actually deserves to be an all-star. How many players will they have? I think it'll be two.
You think there's two?
I think it'll be Machado and Suarez. When you look at compared to the rest of the National League relievers and closers, I do think Suarez will get it. Those two, to me, are you never want to say for sure, because there's been some all-star craziness in the past, but you feel pretty good about those two. Everyone else, it's going to be tight with some of the other guys, and we'll talk about that. So it's a great show. It's a great time. I encourage everyone to check it out. Heath Bell is hilarious, as you remember from his playing days. He continues to be in his post-playing career, so definitely join us. And then next Monday, I'll be on with Mike Cameron, former Padres center fielder.
Dude.
Yeah, great guy. Talking baseball, talking about this team. He has so much great insight about the lineup and the struggles and how guys get out of it. And I really, really encourage everyone to check it out.
He's absolutely great dude. By the way, if Suarez does make it to the All-Star game, I just need him to pitch against Shohei Ohtani in the All-Star game, and we'll see what happens. I mean, that just has to happen, right?
Well, I mean, both in the National League, unfortunately, won't.
I know.
That. But in theory,
the idea would be awesome.
It would be great drama, great theater. Who knows? Maybe if the Padres fall out of it, they trade Suarez to an AL team. A few days before the All-Star game, we see some of those pre-trades. Who knows? Again,
actually, what am I talking? I mean, that was a complete brain cramp on my end. But Suarez and Ohtani, All-Stars, buddy. Make that happen, baseball. Let's go. Mic them up. They can have a pregame conversation. That's, by the way, and I know the All-Star thing is what it is, right? You don't judge how great a team is by the number of All-Stars, because it's fan voting, all this and that. But like last year, the Padres sent their entire outfield to the All-Star game, right? They had Merrill, Profar, and Tatis. Just think about that. Tatis is not going to advance to the next round because the numbers aren't there. He's like 8th or 9th, I think, in the voting. Merrill, held up by the injuries and everything else. It's going to be Manny Machado. That to me is notable, that the Padres we're talking, they might have only one All-Star. Last year, they sent their entire outfield. That to me is a huge difference with this year's team.
And again, you're right. All-Star voting isn't perfect, but it speaks to the production levels.
Yeah.
And there has undoubtedly been a drop in this team's overall offensive production this year. And it's something they're going to have to fix and figure out if they want to be not just a playoff team, because again, no one getting to the playoffs is an accomplishment. When you look at the Padres, where they are, who they have, no one wants to get into the wild card round and get swept. No one wants to be, early round fodder. For the Padres to be a team that can contend to get to at least an NLCS, they need to get more production from their current guys. Yeah. And they also need to add. They have to have both. This team is just not good enough to get only one of those things and still advance beyond, really a division series if they're lucky.
Okay, then the last question I'm going to ask you, Kyle Glaser, and thank you again for your time. And this is something that I've talked about with AJ Caswell, like every single week for the past month and a half or so. This is not a team that can wait until the deadline to make a move because they could be buried by that point. They need to make a move right now if they are going to be in it. So I'm putting you on the spot, Kyle Glaser. If you're the Padres, do you make that move now for a suitable left fielder?
The problem is the suitable left fielders right now are all playing for teams who are also on that bubble.
Who are goodish.
I've talked about it for, since the offseason. They should have signed Austin Hayes. That was the most obvious, great, low dollar, signing they should have made. it boggles my mind why they didn't make it. That should have been their number one target. They didn't. The Reds did. And Hayes has been great when he's been on the field. He's hurt right now. But, again, the Reds are right in the thick of NL playoff contention. Taylor Ward with the Angels hasn't had a great year, but the Angels are a 500 team right now. That's 1.5 games out of the wild card in the AL. They're not selling.
You sell every single year. You can't.
So, that's what's tough is the teams that have the left fielders the Padres should target, they're all kind of in that spot. The one team they could and should engage with, but they're such a weird team that's a little delusional about their ability, is the Baltimore Orioles. They have outfielders that the Padres can go get. Acquiring a Cedric Mullins, who's a center fielder, moving him to left makes sense. Even a guy like Ramon Laureano, who's a veteran, he's having a nice year. He's not a huge difference maker, but he's an upgrade for the Padres. That's someone they could go get as well. But the Orioles are weird. Mike Elias and that ownership group has put so much into, hey, we're going to contend. Even though history says they're completely out of it, I have a feeling they're going to take this up to the very last moment they can. Look, AJ Preller can make all the phone calls he wants. If the other GMs don't pick up the phone, there's nothing he can do.
Will the White Sox pick up the phone on Luis Robert Jr.?
But the problem is Luis Robert, he's perennially injured and performing at such a poor level. It's not clear he'd actually be a huge upgrade. As crazy as it sounds, Luis Robert is one of those players whose reputation actually exceeds his performance. And I think it's really important to drill down on him and not be swayed by, he looks the part, he was this big, Cuban signing, like he had that one great year, but you really dive into it, the reputation exceeds the actual production.
Do you think it's also the culture of the White Sox?
Oh,
like how abysmal it must be to be playing there?
There's no question. And Gavin Sheets talked about this a little bit while not insulting the White Sox, but he talked about came on the show a few months ago where he's just having fun again, being in a place where you have fans, you have energy, you have winning, you have veterans. It makes a difference. But it's one thing to take a chance on a guy like that on a minor league deal. It's another to trade significant prospects and take on, salary for a guy you're hoping to bounce back. Again, if Luis Robert was available in a minor league deal, sure, take it, but that's not the case.
Okay.
Hard to bet on that being what's going to make it all click when the cost might be fairly steep, even though he hasn't been that productive, just because the name and the pedigree, the White Sox are going to want something back.
Well, thank you for answering my question. I have it here on the little ticker. Who were the Padres at the halfway point? Kyle, you gave me my answer. They're goodish. They're goodish. It took 27 minutes, but I have an answer for who the Padres are. 44-36. I will say this to you as a lifelong San Diegan, which I believe you are as well.
Yes, I was born in Newport Beach, but I grew up in San Diego.
Okay. The Marty Caswell that grew up at Jack Murphy Stadium and sat in right field, section 51, to watch Tony win every single game, right? Would have killed to be 44-36 at the halfway point of the season. Yes. So this conversation, I so much appreciate the angst of the Padres fans and the dilemma they're in, because the bar has been set and the expectation is high, and people are damn mad right now that the Padres are 44-36. They're not believing. I remember that on the Channel 4 Padres, they hired a comedian at one point after the fire sale to do hey, it's baseball, because the Padres were so bad. They had no players you could root for. They had no stars. Hey, it's baseball. They're 44-36. They are goodish. We will see what happens. Kyle Glaser, you're the man. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure, Marty. And by the way, I'm right there with you. We could all go back to the D'Angelo Jimenez, Ramon Vasquez, Ben Davis days if you'd prefer.
Ben Davis.
This is much better. Perspective is important, people.
Yeah, well, Ben Davis did break up, Kurt Schilling's perfect game. So, he's a hero for that.
Always.
Always. Thanks, Kyle. Take care. You're the best.
Thanks, Marty.
All right, that was Kyle Glaser. Again, you can catch his excellent podcast. He puts on a couple of ex-Padres as his co-host. He has Heath Feld tomorrow. Then he's going to have Mike Cameron on Monday, as he mentioned. I really enjoyed that conversation with Kyle Glaser, and he answered my question. The Padres are goodish. I mentioned that I spoke with AJ Caswell a lot during the series. I sit next to him in the press box, and we went back and forth on the backlash that we both received when AJ said, listen, the Padres did not lose the trade, and this is why. The conversation is so good that we're going to talk about that a little bit more next week when he joins me from Philadelphia. All right, guys, to go ahead and close today's show, I want to give you a little bit of Manny Machado's perspective. He talked about what it was like to go ahead and play 26 games in 26 games in 27 days. Padres went 13-13. The thing is, I had the same questions about the offense at the end of those 26 games that I had before. But to end the show today, here is Manny Machado talking about the Padres, just one game short of the halfway point as they head for a 3-game series in Cincinnati and then Philadelphia next week.
Yeah, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'm ready for the half day tomorrow.
For those of us who don't know, how would you describe the physical toll of the stretch like this?
I don't know. I mean, it's just exhausting. It's a lot. It's tough. Not only what you do, but the competition we played. We played some really good teams, and it was mentally draining as much as it was physically.
I feel like the team navigated it though pretty well, especially.
I think we did a good job. I mean, as best as we could. Could we have done better? For sure, we would have loved to. But let's just enjoy this victory, these last two serious wins at home, leading to this off day, and hopefully start playing some better baseball.
You guys are at the halfway point of the season, the game short of that. How do you think that you guys have played so far as everything?
I think we've done a pretty good job. With the injuries we've had, guys coming up, stepping up, staying in flow. It's been a pretty decent first half. So just continue playing baseball like that, keep growing from it. Hopefully we got some guys coming back here pretty soon. But until then, it's just keep playing the baseball we have.
I feel like every month we're talking about a new milestone. What does it mean to you, all the work that you put in to be just short of 2,000 hits?
I mean, it's fun. Just hearing those numbers. I mean, they're racking up. So it's pretty amazing. It's pretty hard to get one hit in the big leagues, and let alone reaching some pretty historical numbers. So it's pretty exciting.
All right, so that was Manny Machado talking about being just 9 hits short of 2,000. I have a feeling that it's going to happen in Philadelphia when they are there next week. All right, guys. So Manny Machado said that the Padres are pretty decent staying afloat. Kyle Glaser gives you goodish. We're going to find out very soon what these Padres are. And again, I think the Michael King thing is going to be interesting. He threw for the first time from 105 feet on Monday, I believe. And Mike Schilt said he came out well. But man, if you know that you're not going to have Michael King back at all this season, again, Michael King is optimistic he will return. To me, that changes everything what you do at the deadline, because you cannot win with the type of pitching staff they have right now in the postseason. All right, guys, I appreciate your time. We are brought to you again by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players' Place. We made it to the halfway point of the season. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys. You guys made this small trade with the Nationals a couple of years ago for a guy named Juan Soto. Are you at all surprised to see how quickly James Wood has developed into the player that he is?
No. I saw him. I think I was in rehab, and we were in there together, and I saw what he was capable of, and I'm definitely not surprised at what he's doing, and I'm just really happy how he's playing baseball right now.
You guys were elated when you got Soto in that moment, but at that time when you saw who the players get up, did you think, look out, these guys could be very special very soon? You remember thinking that at all?
I mean, just the trade itself speaks for itself. They're not gonna trade Juan Soto for any guy in particular, but they were smart about it, and then they got some really good players, and shout out to you for signing them, but also trading them. But it's part of the business.